She sleeps next to him every night. But you receive the messages at 2 a.m., the looks that last 3 seconds longer, the tension in the air when you meet, by chance, and the question that eats away at you inside. Why did he choose you, but act like he still wants you? The answer will shock you, and it has nothing to do with beauty, status, or who is better. Carl Jung discovered something disturbing about the male psyche that explains why a man can love a woman, build a life with her, and still feel an inexplicable void that only you seem to fill. It's not about betrayal. It's about something much deeper and more primal in his mind. Over the next few minutes, you'll understand the hidden psychological mechanism that keeps you stuck in this situation, and what it reveals about yourself that you never imagined. 1. The safe woman versus the woman he wants. There is a brutal difference between the woman with whom a man builds a life and the one who stirs something primitive inside him. It offers stability, predictability, a routine that works. You represent the unknown, that which gets out of control. And here's the truth that no one wants to admit. Most men choose based on fear, not desire. Jung said that every human being carries two opposing forces within him. A search for security, social approval, a life that makes sense to others. The other force wants intensity, authenticity, real connection. When he chose her, he probably chose the version of himself that wants to please the family, keep up appearances, follow the expected script. But this choice does not erase the other part of him, the one that still pulsates when you appear. The official partner usually represents everything that is acceptable. She fits into his world without making waves. Maybe he comes from the same social class, shares the same surface values, knows how to behave at dinners with his parents. There is comfort in this. There is predictability, but there is also boredom. There's a sense of living a borrowed life, playing a role that was never really his. You, on the other hand, tap into something deeper. Maybe you'll challenge him in ways she never would. Maybe you see parts of him that he learned to hide from the world. With you, he doesn't have to keep his mask on all the time. There is a naked truth to this connection that scares as much as it attracts. That's why he can't just forget you, even though he's made a different choice. The central question here is not about who is better or worse. It's about different functions. She works as an anchor, keeping his life organized and socially acceptable. You act as a mirror, showing who he really is underneath all the layers of expectations. And this creates an internal conflict that is impossible to resolve without pain. Often, the choice for safety happens in times of pressure. Perhaps the family was demanding marriage. Perhaps he was at a stage in his life where he needed to prove something to himself or to others. Maybe he was simply afraid to dive into the unknown you represent. So he made the rational choice, the safe choice, the one that seemed to make sense on paper. But the human heart doesn't work with logic alone. There is an emotional, instinctive part that keeps asking for what was left behind. It's like closing the door to a room in the house but continuing to hear noises inside. He may try to ignore it. He may convince himself that he made the right choice. But something inside him knows that he has left an important part of himself on the outside. The drama of this situation is that both women lose in different ways. It has the commitment, but it doesn't have the intensity. You have the desire, but you don't have the concrete choice. And he gets stuck in the middle, torn between two needs that seem impossible to reconcile. The woman of security and the woman of desire are rarely the same person because they require completely different aspects of the male psyche. Jung called this the tension of opposites. Every man carries within himself the impulse to order and the impulse to chaos, for tradition and for rebellion, for the known and for the mystery. When these two forces are not integrated, he ends up projecting each one onto different women, and so you remain eternally divided, never completely satisfied, always with the feeling that you are betraying a part of yourself, no matter what choice you make. 2. The hidden side that only you awaken in him. Every man has a version of himself that he shows to the world, and another that he keeps under lock and key. Jung called this the shadow, the rejected part of the personality that doesn't fit the image he wants to project. And here's the secret. You have direct access to that shadow in a way that it probably never will. Think about how many parts of ourselves we need to hide in order to be accepted. From a young age, a man learns what is appropriate to show and what he needs to suffocate. Maybe he learned to hide vulnerability because men don't cry. Maybe he buried his anger because controlled men succeed. Each social rule adds another layer of repression. With his official partner, he usually maintains this performance. She met him in an already edited version, already approved for public consumption. It's a cycle that feeds itself. It performs, it validates the performance, and both convince themselves that it's real. But it is not. It is only the acceptable half. You somehow broke that barrier. Maybe it was something you said, a way you looked at him, a situation where his defenses dropped. Suddenly he realized that he could show you those rejected pieces of himself and you wouldn't run away. This creates an intimacy that goes beyond the physical. It's the intimacy of being seen completely. This connection with the shadow is addictive. It's like breathing after being underwater for a long time. With you, he can express the anger he normally swallows, the sadness he has learned to disguise, the desires that have been labeled as inappropriate. You represent a space where it is allowed to be whole. Often this happens because you yourself have a different relationship with your own shadow. Maybe you're more comfortable with contradictions, more honest about your own inner demons. This creates an energetic field where authenticity is allowed. It's simply the feeling that he can take off his armor without being attacked. The danger of this dynamic is that it can become an escape, rather than a true integration. He divides his psyche between two worlds, the world of light, where he lives the acceptable life with her, and the world of shadows, where he processes his inconvenient truths with you. But this division never brings peace. Jung believed that the path to maturity is to accept and integrate the shadow. It is not a matter of acting according to all the dark impulses, but of recognizing that they exist. A man who completely denies his shadow becomes rigid, inauthentic, dead inside. A man who gives himself completely to it becomes destructive. The balance is in recognizing both sides. The fact that you awaken this hidden part in him does not necessarily mean that you should be together. It means that you serve as a catalyst for a psychological process that he has to face. But this process is his responsibility, not yours. If he doesn't do the integration work, you just become a vessel for what he doesn't want to deal with. The deep question here is, to what extent do you want to be that role in his life? There is something powerful about being the person who sees someone's hidden side, but there is also a trap. You can be stuck in that role, eternally on the sidelines. Never really chosen, because choosing you would mean choosing the shadow. If this video made something inside you click, don't ignore that feeling. It's not confusion. It's clarity trying to surface. You'll find the link to the Jung method pinned in the first comment below. 3. Because he can't forget you. Emotional memory works in a peculiar way. We don't keep moments by duration or frequency, but by intensity. And herein lies his problem. The moments with you probably carry an emotional charge that the moments with her simply don't have. No matter how much time passes, these marks do not disappear. When he is by her side living the routine, there is comfort, but there is also anesthesia. Things happen automatically. He knows exactly what to expect, how each day will unfold, what answer will come from each question. This creates stability, but it also kills the surprise. And the human brain is addicted to novelty, to unpredictability, to that adrenaline rush of not knowing exactly what comes next. With you, each encounter carries a different energy. Maybe it's the tension of something forbidden. Maybe it's the freedom of not having defined obligations. Maybe it's simply the raw chemistry that exists between you. But the result is the same. These moments are etched in his memory with frightening clarity. He remembers small details, the way you laughed at a silly joke, the comfortable silence you shared. Jung talked about emotional complexes, those nuclei of energy that form around intense experiences. You have become a complex in his psyche. It's not something he consciously controls. It's like a magnet that pulls his attention even when he tries to resist. You may be in the middle of a conversation and something triggers your memory. A song, a smell, a facial expression. Suddenly he's back to those moments. The brain does not distinguish very well between real experiences and vivid memories. When he mentally relives the moments with you, his body responds as if it were happening again. This reinforces the cycle. Each time he visits these memories, they become stronger, more defined, harder to erase. There is also the effect of incompleteness. Relationships that end clearly are more likely to be processed and filed away by the mind. But when something is left open, when there is this gray area of possibilities, the brain continues to work on it behind the scenes. It's like leaving a math unsolved. The mind is brooding, creating scenarios, imagining developments. To make matters worse, there is the phenomenon of idealization by distance. Since you probably don't share the annoyances of everyday life, you remain in an idealized version in his head. He doesn't have to deal with you sulking in the morning, stressed out with work, or too tired to talk. You exist mostly in the good times, and that creates an image that no real person can compete with. The official partner is exposed to all the mundane facets of life. She sees him hungover, angry with his boss, worried about money. This total exposure is necessary for a shared life, but it also erodes the mystique. It's impossible to keep someone on a pedestal when you share the same house. Time also plays against oblivion. The more he tries to force, the more psychic energy he devotes to you. It's the famous white bear effect. When someone tells you not to think about a white bear, that's exactly what you think of. Each conscious effort of not remembering you turns into another moment where you occupy his mental space. The hard truth is that he'll probably never completely forget you. But that doesn't mean you should be together. It just means that you have left a mark, and marks don't disappear. They just become part of the person's internal landscape. The real question is not whether he can forget you, but whether he is willing to integrate that memory in a healthy way. 4. The fantasy she will never fulfill. Every long-term relationship eventually runs into an invisible wall of unsaid. There are desires he never expressed, fantasies he kept quiet, parts of him he learned not to show because he realized she wouldn't react well. And you, without even trying, have become the living vessel of these unrealized things. The fantasy here is not necessarily sexual, although it may include that. We are talking about something broader. The fantasy of being completely accepted, of not having to police yourself, of being able to express thoughts without fear of judgment. Over time, every couple develops unspoken rules about what can and cannot be said. These rules keep the peace, but they also create an invisible prison. Perhaps from her he learned that he cannot show too much weakness because she needs to see him as strong, or that it can't be too direct because she interprets it as a lack of sensitivity, or that certain subjects are taboo because they have caused fights before. Each of these limitations is small, but together they build a persona that he needs to constantly maintain, and that is tiring. With you, for some reason, these rules do not apply in the same way, perhaps because the relationship does not have the weight of future expectations. Maybe because you're simply different in how you react to things, but the result is that he feels he can let his guard down, and this creates a sense of freedom that becomes addictive. Jung said that every human being projects onto others what they cannot live on themselves. It may represent to him the life he should want, the socially approved version of happiness. You represent the life he really wants, even if that life is impossible or impractical, and this projection gives you immense power over his inner world. The interesting thing is that fantasy is often more powerful than reality would be. If you really stayed together, the same dynamics would start to show up. You would develop your own unspoken rules, your own areas of conflict. But as long as you remain out of complete range, you can continue to be everything he imagines without the complications of real life. She probably feels it somehow, not necessarily as conscious knowledge, but as a sense that it is competing with something invisible. Try as she might, there's a part of him that seems inaccessible. And the more she tries to reach, the more he withdraws. The unfulfilled fantasy functions as an emotional black hole. She pulls energy constantly. Every time he feels some frustration in the official relationship, his mind automatically fills that void with the image of you. You become the answer to everything that is missing, even if rationally he knows that this is not true. There is also the component of incomplete achievement. Men, in general, are programmed to value what requires effort. With it, the achievement has already been completed. There is commitment, there is a shared life. Mission accomplished. But with you, there's this permanent tension of the unresolved, and that keeps his interest artificially high. The fundamental problem is that as long as you are the unfulfilled fantasy, you will never be real. You exist in a limbo where you are simultaneously overvalued and completely disposable. Overvalued because it carries all these projections and meanings. Disposable because at the end of the day, when concrete decisions need to be made, he chooses the security of the known. The question you need to ask yourself is, do you want to continue being someone's fantasy? There is a price in being idealized. You stop being human and become a symbol. And symbols have no needs of their own. They do not deserve concrete choices, they exist only to serve someone else's inner narrative. 5. The dangerous game of forbidden attraction. There is something primitive in the human brain that lights up when something is marked as forbidden. The band creates a magnetism that defies logic, and you, being in this zone of the socially unacceptable, carry this power without even having to do anything. Jung studied deeply how the psyche works through opposites. Light and shadow, allowed and prohibited. When something is pushed to the forbidden side, it doesn't go away. It gains strength in the depths. The more someone tries to deny a desire, the more energy that desire consumes. It's like trying to hold a ball underwater. His official relationship lives under the spotlight of social approval. Family knows, friends know, colleagues comment. There is a constant pressure for everything to work, for the image of the happy couple to be maintained. Every fight needs to be hidden, every doubt silenced, every bad moment disguised with smiles in the photos. With you, it's different. No one is watching, no one is charging. This absence of outside gazes creates a bubble of freedom that is almost irresistible. Within this bubble, he can be imperfect. He can make mistakes. He can show weaknesses without fear of destroying a built reputation. The lightness of it is addictive. But there is a dark side. The same prohibition that creates attraction also creates guilt. And guilt has a strange effect. Instead of taking the person away from the desire, it often intensifies the obsession. It's as if the brain tries to justify the weight by saying, "If I feel so bad, it's because this must be very important." Guilt feeds desire, and desire feeds guilt. You become part of a game where he tests his own limits. How far can he go and still consider himself a good person? Each interaction is an internal negotiation between what he wants and what he thinks he should want. This constant tension generates an emotional adrenaline rush that can be mistaken for passion. The greatest danger is not only for him, it's for you too. When you are trapped in this role of the forbidden, you accept crumbs and call it a feast. You celebrate hidden messages, hasty dates, stolen attention, and he convinces himself that this is special, when in fact it is only convenient for him. You become an accomplice of your own invisibility. Jung talked about the importance of bringing to light what is hidden. As long as something remains in the shadows, it has power over us. The forbidden is only exciting as long as it remains forbidden. If he really chose you, if you built something out in the open, the dynamic would change completely. The adrenaline would evaporate, and what would be left? Maybe a real connection, maybe nothing. The uncomfortable truth is that many men don't want to change the status quo. They want to have both experiences simultaneously, the security of a stable relationship and the excitement of something forbidden. And as long as you accept this role, he will have no reason to choose. Why choose when you can have it all? There is also the male ego component. For many men, having a woman waiting, desiring, available is a powerful validation. It proves that it still has value, it is still desirable. This feeds a deep need to feel in control, to have power over one's own life even when other areas seem to get out of control. The forbidden attraction game has invisible rules. The first rule: you always lose. Or lose it because it was never really your choice. Or it loses itself because it accepted to be treated as a secret. The second rule: the longer you stay in this game, the harder it is to get out. You start to normalize the unacceptable. The third rule: he will never tell you that he is playing. Jung said that we need to integrate the shadow, not live in it. To be the forbidden person is to live permanently in the shadow of another person. You don't have your own light in this story. You exist only as a contrast, and that will never be enough to build something real, something that sustains you, something that makes you grow. 6. When the right choice is not the heart's choice. Society teaches us from an early age that there is a difference between what we want and what we should want. This division creates one of the most painful conflicts. He chose her because it was the right choice. You represent the choice of the heart, and he is caught between these two realities. The right choice comes with a list of criteria. She is financially stable or comes from a good family. She has the same life goals. She fits into his world without creating conflicts. Parents approve. Friends think they match. On paper, it all makes sense. It's the choice any sensible person would make. It's the choice he can explain and defend to anyone who asks. But the heart does not work with lists of criteria. The heart responds to inexplicable things. A specific laugh, a way of looking, a conversation that flows effortlessly, a feeling of being at home even though you are with someone you have just met. The heart doesn't care if it makes sense. He only knows what he feels. and what he feels for you does not fit into any rational explanation. Jung talked about the tension between persona and true self. The persona is the social mask, the version of ourselves that we show the world to be accepted. The true self is who we really are underneath all expectations. When he chose her, he chose with the persona. When he desires you, he desires with the true self, and this internal conflict can destroy a person inside. Our culture values rational choice over emotional choice. We are taught to distrust feelings. So when he feels this inexplicable attraction to you, his first reaction is to fight against it, try to suffocate. But feelings don't go away just because we decide they shouldn't exist. She probably notices this division in him somehow. She feels like she has the official version of him, while something else is kept away from her. This creates an insecurity that no external guarantee can cure. She can have the house, the shared surname, but he knows that he does not have complete access to his inner world. There is a particular cruelty in being chosen by reason and not by the heart. She lives with someone who is there out of duty, out of adequacy, not because of the urgency of being together. This difference is felt in every gesture, in every conversation. It is a life of almost enough, but never breathtaking. What about you? You live the opposite. He has his heart, but he doesn't have the choice. There are the intense moments, but not the shared life. He has the passion, but not the commitment. You know that you are deeply desired, but you also know that this desire is not strong enough to change their reality. So she gets stuck in a limbo, too important to be forgotten, but not important enough to be chosen. Jung believed that individuation requires the courage to go against external expectations. It requires being willing to disappoint people, to make choices that don't make sense to others. Few men have that courage. Most prefer the security of being approved. His conflict is not about which woman is better. It's about which version of himself he wants to be. The version that pleases everyone and lives within the lines, or the version that takes risks and chooses what he feels. As long as he does not resolve this internal issue, he will continue to be divided. Some people spend their entire lives in this inner division, never fully present anywhere. They choose security but dream of intensity, never in peace. The question you need to face is, how much time are you going to dedicate to someone who doesn't have the courage to choose their own heart? You deserve to be the complete choice. 7. What it says about you, the truth hurts. Now it's time to turn the mirror, because this whole situation does not concern only him or her. It says a lot about you too. And that part will hurt, but it needs to be said. You're accepting crumbs because somewhere deep inside you, you believe you don't deserve the full feast. Jung drew attention to a crucial psychological phenomenon. We externally create what we believe internally. If you're stuck in a pattern where you're always the second option, the hidden woman, the one who doesn't deserve the public choice, it reflects something about how you see yourself, not because you're less valuable, but because maybe you don't fully believe in your own worth. Think about it. How many times have you justified his behavior? How many times have you told yourself that the situation is complicated, that he needs time, that things will change eventually? Each time you do this, you are telling yourself that your time is worthless, that your needs can wait, that you can continue to be invisible just a little longer. There is a difference between being patient and being an emotional doormat. Patience is when you choose to wait for something that has a real prospect of happening. Being a doormat is when you accept anything because you are afraid of losing even that. And this distinction is brutal but necessary. Are you waiting or are you conforming? The hardest truth is that we often choose impossible situations precisely because they are impossible. Because while it's not really available, you don't have to take any real chances. You don't have to show your complete vulnerabilities, your real flaws, your deep needs. You can stay on the surface of the intensity without diving into the real intimacy that scares you. Hidden relationships have a dangerous psychological advantage. They protect you from real rejection. Because if he doesn't choose you, you can always blame the circumstances, the other woman, the wrong timing. But if you were completely available to someone available and still weren't chosen, then it would be about you, and that's scary more than you admit. Jung said that the more we avoid something, the more power we give to it. You may be avoiding real intimacy by using this situation as a shield. It's easier to desire someone you can't have completely than to risk having someone completely and find out that it still wouldn't be enough. This is the wound that hurts too much to touch. There is also the issue of the standard. If you look honestly at your history, how many times have you found yourself in this position? always attracted to unavailable, complicated, divided men. If this is repeated, it is not bad luck. It's a psychological pattern that you need to break, and no one will break it for you. The most important question you can ask yourself right now is, what do you gain by staying in this situation? It seems counterintuitive, but all repetitive behavior has a secondary gain. Maybe it's intensity without commitment. Maybe it's fantasy without reality. Maybe it's being able to blame him for his own emotional unavailability. Whatever it is, you need to figure it out. Another hard truth. While you're stuck in this dynamic, you're unavailable for anything real. How many available, interested, present men have you ignored because you were busy waiting for crumbs from him? How many possibilities have you missed because you were investing emotional energy in a dead end? The reality is that you teach people how to treat you. And right now you're teaching him that it's okay to have you when it's convenient, to hide you when it's necessary, to keep you in suspension indefinitely. You're saying with your actions that this is acceptable, and as long as you continue to accept it, he has no reason to change. Jung believed in the concept of personal shadow, that part of us that we don't want to see, that we project onto others, that we deny with all our might. Your shadow in this story may be precisely your own emotional unavailability, your own fear of real intimacy, your own belief that you are not worthy of a complete choice. The final question is simple but devastating. Are you in this situation because you truly love him, or because you are afraid to take a chance with someone who could really choose you? 8. 3 paths. Wait, leave, or conquer. We have reached the end. And now you have 3 possible paths in front of you. Each one has a price, each one has consequences. The choice is yours, but at least now you choose consciously, not on emotional autopilot. The first way is to wait. You decide that you will continue in this dynamic and wait for him to eventually make a definitive choice. This path requires you to be brutally honest about what you're accepting. You are choosing to wait knowing that you can wait forever, that he may never decide, that you can invest years of your life in a maybe that will never become certain. If you choose to wait, do so with your eyes open. Set an internal deadline even if you don't count for it. 6 months, a year, as long as you think is fair. But have a limit. Because waiting indefinitely is not love, it is self-sabotage. And during this wait, continue living your life. Don't put everything on pause for someone who hasn't chosen you yet. The second way is to leave. You decide that your value no longer allows for this kind of situation. You cut contact, you create distance, you refuse to continue being the secret option. This is the most painful path in the short term, but potentially the most liberating in the long term. Leaving requires immense strength because you go against all your desire to stay. If you choose to leave, know that he will probably try to bring you back. Divided men have a special radar for when they are losing option B. He will send messages saying that he is confused, that he needs you, that things will change. Don't fall. This is not real change, it's just panic of losing control. Real change comes with concrete actions, not empty promises and desperation. Leaving also means doing the inner work that Jung talked about so much. Understand why you accepted this situation. What a wound in you allowed that. What pattern needs to be broken so you don't see yourself in that place again. Without this work, you will start from it, but you will end up finding another one like it. The third way is to conquer. You decide that you will fight for this relationship consciously and strategically, not with desperation or manipulation, but by showing him what he is missing by not choosing you. This path is risky because it can work or it can trap you even more in an illusion. If you choose to conquer, know that this also means giving an ultimatum at some point. It cannot be an eternal achievement. You show your value, you create strategic distance, you stop always being available, and then you watch his reaction. If he runs after it for real with real changes in behavior, maybe it's worth it. If he only talks but doesn't act, you have your answer. Conquering also means being prepared to lose. Because by forcing a decision, you run the risk of him choosing it, and you need to be at peace with that possibility. If you're not ready to lose, don't force the choice. But know that the longer you leave this situation on hold, the more you get lost in the process. Jung said that life not lived turns against us in painful ways. Every day you spend in this indecision is a day that you are not living fully. It's a day that you're on hold, waiting for someone else to decide your fate. And this is not life, it is emotional survival. The truth is that there is no painless path here. Waiting hurts. Leaving hurts. Conquering and losing hurts. But there is a fundamental difference. Some types of pain destroy you, others rebuild you stronger. Choose the kind of pain that transforms you, not the kind that keeps you stuck. So here's the final question. Which path do you choose? Wait, leave or conquer? And more importantly, are you choosing out of self-love or fear of losing it? Because this distinction changes everything. The answer is within you. It always has been. You just needed courage to really look.